remembering those that survived the sinking of the RMS Titanic on April 15, 1912. The information provided was obtained and used from findagrave.com. This video contains passengers and employees with the last name starting with T and V. The remaining survivors will follow shortly. The Taussig family. Mother, Tilly Mandelbaum Taussig. Daughter, Ruth Taussig Lichtenstein. Tilly Mandelbaum Taussig, born 1872, in New York. In 1893, she married Mr. Taussig. Following a visit to Vienna, the Taussigs boarded the Titanic as first-class passengers. Tilly stated that her daughter was among the first to get in a lifeboat. She wouldn't go if her husband did not accompany her. There was room for 14 more. The boat swung out from the deck, and Tilly was still with her husband. Two men tore Tilly from her husband's side, lifted her, one by the head and the other by the feet, and dropped her over the side of the deck. Tilly struck the back of her head, but having furs on, probably saved her from greater injury. Tilly's husband perished in the sinking. 5 months after the disaster, while administering her husband's estate, Tilly found some shares that he had. She thought they were worthless. However, Tilly sold the shares to the Engelhart Collapsible Lifeboat Company for $2,000. In 1920, Tilly remarried Mr. Samuel and settled in New York. She was made a widow for the second time. Tilly passed away in 1957 at the age of 84. She is buried in New York. Ruth Taussig Lichtenstein, born 1893, in New York. She later married Mr. Lichtenstein, and they had 2 daughters. Ruth passed away in 1925 at the age of 31 due to typhoid fever. She was buried in New York. The next survivor is the Taylor family. Husband, Elmer Zebley Taylor. Wife, Juliet Cummins Wright Taylor. Elmer Zebley Taylor, born 1864, in Delaware. He was a pioneer in the paper container industry. In 1910, Elmer founded the Mono Service Company in New Jersey. He is often credited with being the inventor of the paper cup. Elmer lived in Pennsylvania before moving to England. He was 48 years of age when he and his wife sailed on the Titanic. They were traveling to New Jersey. The Taylors were rescued in Lifeboat 5. Elmer crossed the Atlantic 60 times and made 2 world trips. In 1914, he returned back to the United States. After Juliet passed away, Elmer remarried and lived in New Jersey until his death. He passed away in 1949 at the age of 85 due to an illness he had for 3 months. He is buried in Delaware. Juliet Cummins Wright Taylor, born 1862, in Delaware. She passed away in 1927 at the age of 64. Juliet is buried in Delaware. The next survivor is George James Taylor, born 1888, in England. He worked on the Titanic as a fireman. George survived the sinking in Lifeboat 1. It had only 12 people in it, but held 40. He testified at the British Inquiry. George passed away in 1931 at the age of 43. He is buried in England, and his grave is marked with a wooden cross. The next survivor is William Henry Taylor, born 1883, in England. He worked on the Titanic as a fireman. William was ordered on deck and left the Titanic in Lifeboat 15 with 5 other firemen. He passed away in 1914 at the age of 30 after an accident at the Southampton docks when he was struck by a large metal post. William is buried in England in an unmarked grave. The next survivor is Gunnar Isidor Tinglin, born 1887, in Sweden. He moved to the USA in 1903, settling in Iowa. Later, Gunnar gained employment at the Horace Patterson farm, and there, he learned to speak English. In 1908, he returned to Sweden, promising his mother he would return after 5 years. Gunnar was married and they had a son in 1911. He had planned on returning back to Iowa a year later. Gunnar boarded the Titanic and was rescued in lifeboat 13 or 15. In New York, he was given $25 from the Salvation Army's cadet school. Gunnar continued on to Iowa. Later, he was joined by his wife and son. In 1937, Gunnar was hired by a firm, working as a millwright. He retired in 1959. Gunnar passed away at a hospital in 1974, at the age of 86, due to pneumonia. He is buried in Iowa. The next survivor is Frank Terrell, born 1884, in England. There is no information available on this individual. His find a grave could not be located. The spelling of his last name varies. The following information was obtained and used from the Encyclopedia Titanica website. Frank was an assistant saloon steward on the Titanic. His monthly income was £3 or $14.60. His younger brother, Bertram, was on the Titanic as well. Frank was rescued, however the lifeboat number is unclear. His brother perished in the sinking. Frank returned back home and continued to work at sea, serving during World War I, in the merchant service. By 1940, he was still working at sea and unmarried. Frank passed away in 1949, at the age of 63, or he may be the Frank Travel, who died in 1954. A number of his personal items, including Titanic paraphernalia and his medals, came up for auction. The next survivor is the Thayer family. Mother, Marion Longstreth Morris Thayer. Son, Captain John Borland Thayer, III. Marion Longstreth Morris Thayer, born 1872, in Pennsylvania. She boarded the Titanic, along with her husband and son. Marion and her son was rescued, but her husband perished in the sinking. She passed away in 1944, at the age of 71, on the 32nd anniversary of the sinking. Marion had been ill for a year. She is buried in Pennsylvania. Captain John Borland Thayer III, born 1894, in Pennsylvania. He was a vice president of the University of Pennsylvania. John had suffered from a nervous breakdown for the past 2 weeks. It was due to the death of his son, who was killed in service. John was reported missing, and was found deceased with his wrists and throat cut, in a parked automobile. The coroner stated there was no doubt that he used razor blades, which the police found in the car. John died about 40 hours before his body was found. His brother identified him at the morgue. John passed away in 1945, at the age of 50. He is buried in Pennsylvania. The next survivor is Alfred Daniel Teisinger, born 1865, in Germany. He was a bedroom steward, first class, on the Titanic. Alfred survived the sinking in lifeboat 11. He passed away in 1949, at the age of 83. Alfred is buried in Germany, however, the grave has been removed. The next survivor is Albert Charles Thomas, born 1889, in England. He worked on the Titanic as a dining room steward, first class. Albert survived the sinking in lifeboat 15. He continued to work with White Star after the sinking. Alfred passed away in 1973, at the age of 84. He was cremated and his ashes was scattered in the Rose Garden, in England. The next survivor is Benjamin James Thomas, born 1881, in England. In 1906, he was married and they had one daughter. Benjamin's last ship had been the Olympic, when it collided with the Hawk in 1911. He boarded the Titanic and was a saloon steward, first class. Benjamin's monthly income was £3 or $14.60. He was rescued in lifeboat 15. Benjamin joined his wife and daughter and settled in New Jersey. He passed away in 1937 at the age of 56. Benjamin is buried in New Jersey. The next survivor is the Thomas family. Mother, the Mine Curry Thomas. Son, Ast Alexander Thomas. The Mine Curry Thomas, born 1895, in Syria. She was immigrating to the United States and boarded the Titanic, along with her son. As the ship was going down, the Mine's brother-in-law handed her son to a woman in a lifeboat. She was separated from her son during the rescue and survived in Lifeboat 13. The Mine was reunited with him on board the Carpathia. Her brother-in-law perished in the sinking. The Mine and that woman was reunited on NBC television Today Show in 1972. In 1974, the Mine passed away in a nursing home where she had been a patient for 3 weeks. She was 78 years of age. The Mine is buried in Pennsylvania. Ast Alexander Thomas, born 1911, in Lebanon. He was 5 months of age when he boarded the Titanic. Ast was rescued in Lifeboat 16. He passed away in 1931 at the age of 19 due to pneumonia. Ast is buried in Pennsylvania. The next survivor is John William Thompson, born 1876, in England. There is no information available on this individual. The following information was obtained and used from the Encyclopedia Titanica website. John was a fireman on the Titanic. His monthly income was £6 or $29.20. John was rescued in the swamped lifeboat Collapsible A, then transferred to Lifeboat 14. Somehow, he broke his arm in his struggle to survive in the water. John didn't notice it until he had to climb up the rope ladder into the Carpathia. What became of him after 1912 is a mystery. John's date of death and burial details are unknown. The next survivor is Gertrude Mabel McMinn Yank, born 1875, in California. It is believed that she married Mr. Thorne in 1899. Gertrude was listed on the 1910 census, a widow living in New York with Mr. Cohn. She boarded the Titanic as a first-class passenger. Gertrude was traveling with Mr. Rosenshine. To hide the fact that they weren't married, they boarded the Titanic under the assumed names of Thorne. They were returning from a business trip and holiday. George perished in the sinking, but Gertrude escaped in Lifeboat Collapsible D. Gertrude married Mr. Yank, and the couple settled in Paris. She passed away in 1947 at the age of 72 due to cerebral hemorrhage. Gertrude is buried in France. The next survivor is Florence Kate Steers Thornycroft, born 1879, in England. She boarded the Titanic with her husband and were third-class passengers. Florence was rescued in Lifeboat 10 by the Carpathia. Her husband perished in the sinking. Florence was 32 years of age at the time of the disaster. She remarried her cousin, Mr. White, in 1913. Florence passed away in 1950 at the age of 70. She is buried in England in an unmarked grave. The next survivor is Thomas Threlfall, born in 1867, in England. He was married to Margaret Downs. Thomas was a leading fireman on the Titanic. He survived the sinking in Lifeboat 14. Thomas passed away in 1934 at the age of 66. He is buried in England. The next survivor is George Terrell Thresher, born 1886, in England. In 1911, he appeared on the census and was described as an unmarried seaman for White Star Line. George was a fireman on board the Titanic. His monthly income was £6 or $29.20. George survived the sinking, but the lifeboat number is unknown. He returned to England and continued to work at sea. George settled in England and was married in 1937. He was working with the Merchant Navy on board the SS Parkhill when the vessel was torpedoed in 1939. George evaded the first missile launched and steamed on. The vessel succumbed less than 1 hour later to a second attack. George became one of 9 fatalities. He passed away in 1939 at the age of 53. George is buried in England. The next survivor is Fred Toms, born 1882, in England. He was a saloon steward on board the Titanic. Fred was rescued in lifeboat 15. He was married and the couple moved to California. In 1930, Fred was working as a railway steward. He passed away in 1937 at the age of 54 due to a heart attack. Fred is buried in California. However, he may have been returned to England for burial. The next survivor is Ellen Mary Toomey, born 1862, in Ireland. She was an unmarried maidservant to a surgeon residing in Indiana. Ellen returned to Ireland, visiting family. She boarded the Titanic as a second-class passenger. Ellen entered Lifeboat 9 that held around 30 people. She spent the remainder of her life in Indiana. Ellen secreted herself in a covenant. She passed away in 1933 at the age of 71. Ellen is buried in Indiana. The next survivor is the Toma family. Mother, Hannah Youssef Razi Toma. Daughter, Mary Tuma Haddad. Son, George Yusuf Toma. Hannah Youssef Razi Toma, born 1885, in Syria. She was married around 1900 to Mr. Tuma, and they had 2 children. In 1905, her husband settled in Michigan. He worked on a farm, saving enough money to buy his own farm and send for his family to join him. They boarded the Titanic as third-class passengers. Hannah and her children managed to escape in collapsible lifeboat C. She and her family settled in Michigan and later anglicized their names to Thomas. Hannah also changed her first name from Hannah to Anna. She and her husband would later have 3 more children. Her husband passed away in 1946, and Anna relocated to California. She later resettled back in Michigan. Ill health forced Anna into a nursing home. She passed away at a hospital in 1976, at the age of 91. Anna is buried in Michigan. Mary Tuma Haddad, born 1902, in Syria. Mary anglicized her name, from Mariam Tuma to Mary Thomas. In 1919, she married Mr. Haddad, and they had 6 children. Mary passed away in 1953, at the age of 50, due to cirrhosis of the liver. She is buried in Michigan. George Yusuf Toma, born 1904, in Syria. He had a grocery store and real estate business. George also served as the first mayor. Although confined to a wheelchair, he attended a reunion of survivors in 1982. George passed away in 1991, at the age of 87, due to a stroke. He is buried in Michigan. The next survivor is Robert Triggs, born 1871, in England. He was a fireman on board the Titanic. Robert's monthly income was £6 or $29.20. He was rescued in Lifeboat 3. Robert passed away in 1931, at the age of 59. He is buried in England, in an unmarked grave, but Robert now has a marker. The next survivor is Edwina Celia Trout Mackenzie, born 1884, in England. She survived the sinking of the Titanic. Edwina was married 3 times. She passed away in 1984, at the age of 100. Edwina is buried in California. The next survivor is Jessie Laird Bruce Bortner, born 1884, in Scotland. She was married to Mr. Trout in 1911. Being only married 6 months, Jessie's husband passed away after being crushed in a tragic accident. He was struck by a moving train. Distraught by the loss of her husband, Jessie briefly returned back to Scotland. In 1912, she boarded the Titanic and was going to visit her grandparents. Jessie survived the sinking in Lifeboat 9. Arriving in New York, she was given $25 and clothing to continue her journey to Ohio. Jessie later married Mr. Bortner, and they had 3 children. The family resided in Michigan. Jessie died tragically in 1930 from an encounter with a relatively small patch of black ice while riding with her family on a country road. The car rolled over, pinning her in the ice and snow beneath the wreckage, killing her instantly. Jessie was 46 years of age. She is buried in Michigan. The next survivor is Gilbert Milligan Tucker Jr., born 1880, in New York. He boarded the Titanic as a first-class passenger. Gilbert was rescued in Lifeboat 7. In 1922, he was married. Gilbert passed away in 1968, at the age of 87, due to pneumonia. He is buried in New York. The next survivor is Anna Sophia Turha Lundy, born 1893, in Finland. She boarded the Titanic as a third-class passenger. Anna was 18 years of age and was traveling to Ohio. She survived the sinking in Lifeboat 15. In 1913, Anna married Mr. Lundy, and they would have 7 children. She never returned back to Finland and never learned English. After Anna's husband passed away, she moved to California. Anna passed away in 1982, at the age of 89. She is buried in California. The next survivor is Hedvig Solomon Enter Holma Turkula, born 1848, in Finland. She married Mr. Turkula, and they had 8 children. Hedvig became a widow in 1902. After more of her children immigrated to America, the children decided to send for her. Hedvig boarded the Titanic and was rescued. She passed away in 1922, at the age of 73, due to pneumonia and influenza. Hedvig is buried in Minnesota. The next survivor is William Henry Turnquist, born 1886, in Sweden. In 1912, he made a visit to relatives in Sweden and was returning to New York on board the Titanic. William traveled third class, together with 5 fellow America Line employees. He was probably rescued in Lifeboat 15. William later got a job with Matson Lines, where he stayed for several years. William traveled the world over, for many years in the Merchant Marine, rising to the rank of captain, in the U.S. Naval Reserves. He passed away in 1946, at the age of 60, due to heart failure. William is buried in California. The next survivor is David Vartanian, born 1890, in Turkey. He was a survivor of the sinking of the Titanic, and was the subject of a very powerful Titanic love story. After he settled in Canada, David tried to contact his wife, who was still in Armenia. Due to political oppression, and people moving from village to village, he was not able to locate her. In 1923, David received a letter from Armenia, stating that his wife was alive and well. In 1924, his wife landed in Canada, where they were reunited. The couple settled in Michigan, raising 3 children. David worked for the McLouth Steel Corporation for many years, until his retirement. David passed away in 1966, at the age of 76, due to an aneurysm. He is buried in Michigan. The next survivor is Philip Francis Viggett, born 1879, in Bailiwick of Jersey. He was an able seaman on the Titanic. Philip survived the sinking in Lifeboat 13. He passed away in 1941, at the age of 61. Philip is buried in England, in an unmarked grave. If you like this content, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to my channel at MeTime806. Thank you very much.